2004 was the year of promise for stem cell research using human embryos.
To vote yes on Proposition 71, the Stem Cell Research Initiative.
A human being begins as an embryo made up of a starter kit of stem cells. Embryonic stem cells are blank slates, not yet specialized, and thus uniquely useful to researchers. When scientists learned how to remove stem cells from human embryos, it became a flashpoint in American politics. The ethical objection: researchers destroy lab-created human embryos for in vitro fertilization to retrieve embryonic stem cells and their life-saving potential. The federal government stopped research on newly created embryonic stem cell lines. California voters responded. Touting possible cures for paralysis, Parkinson's, and other diseases, Californians put $3 billion towards stem cell research. Now, voters are being asked to fund more stem cell research. This time, it's Prop 14. Hi, I'm Veranda Lyons, video journalist for CalMatters, and I'm explaining Proposition 14 in less than a minute. In 2001, then-President George W. Bush banned federal funding for research using newly created embryonic stem cell lines. In a backlash, California voters approved a state bond measure to fund stem cell research and create the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine. Bonds are loans. The state borrows money from investors, and taxpayers pay it back over time with interest. In the past 14 years, the agency has funded 64 clinical trials and more than 3,000 scientific articles about stem cell research. Now, the agency is running out of money and asking voters for another $5.5 billion. The money would pay for more research, medical training, and building research facilities. Supporters say the institute needs more money to keep working towards cures for diseases. Opponents say there is no longer federal limits on stem cell research, which was the whole genesis of the state getting involved anyway. Vote yes if you want California to keep funding stem cell research. Vote no if you don't. Learn more about these propositions and others at calmatters.org. For CalMatters, I'm Veranda Lyons.
Remember 1978? California's home prices were soaring. Some homeowners, led by this guy, were mad as hell about their ever-increasing property taxes. So voters passed Prop 13, and Californians have been busy voting on property taxes ever since. Over the last 4 decades, Californians have passed more than 20 ballot measures adding new rules for how homes and other properties are taxed. 2020 is no different, but Prop 15, also known as split roll, is the big one. If it passes, it will be the biggest change to California's tax system in a generation. Let me explain.
Hi, I'm Ben Christopher. I'm a political reporter with CalMatters, and I'm going to explain Prop 15 in a minute.
Properties used to be taxed based on the current home price. If a house's value doubled, so did the taxes. Then voters put a stop to that. Under Prop 13, properties are taxed based on their original purchase price. The longer you stay in your home, the larger the tax break. That also applies to commercial properties, which leads us to Prop 15. Prop 15 splits homes from commercial properties, putting them on different tax rolls, hence split roll. If it passes, nothing changes for homeowners, but lots of commercial landlords would be stripped of their Prop 13 protections and will probably have to start paying a lot more. Not so for small businesses and farms. They're exempt. Supporters say this is a great way to provide more funding to cash-strapped schools and local governments, and that large corporations will pay the most. Opponents say this would be one of the largest tax increases ever, and they warn that landlords will pass the higher costs on to their tenants, which might be small businesses. So, vote yes if you want commercial properties to be taxed based on today's mostly higher market prices. Vote no if you want to keep things the way they are. For more on the 2020 election and everything else about California's politics, go to calmatters.org.
Remember California in the mid-90s? Tupac was the king of West Coast rap. California's governor supported denying public services to undocumented immigrants, and voters decided to end affirmative action. California has changed a lot since then. Now, voters are being asked to rewind the clock and make affirmative action legal again, something that's the case in 42 states. And it boils down to this: do equal rights mean no group can have an advantage over another? Or is it about recognizing that forces informed by centuries of oppression make a colorblind legal framework impossible? Enter the heated debate over Proposition 16.
Hi, I'm CalMatters higher education reporter Michael Zinstein, and this is what you need to know about Prop 16 in under a minute.
Prop 16 would allow public agencies such as local governments and state universities to consider race, gender, and ethnicity as factors in hiring, contracting, and admissions. At UC Berkeley and UCLA, the state's most competitive public universities, enrollment declined for Black, Latino, and Native American freshmen once affirmative action was forbidden. There's long been a push to reinstate affirmative action, but 2020 forced many Californians to rethink systemic racism and how it keeps the playing field unequal, helping to put Prop 16 before voters. Supporters say reinstating affirmative action can help to undo generations of racism and discrimination. It would also let state agencies directly target groups of people who are underrepresented, like Black and women academics in university job openings. Opponents say California is already making strides that benefit people of color and women in college enrollment and public employment. So, vote yes if you believe California should again allow for affirmative action. Vote no if you don't. For more information on Prop 16 and everything on the November ballot, visit calmatters.org.
16 states and the District of Columbia allow people to vote once they're released from prison. Vermont and Maine even let people vote from inside prison. But California not only bars state prisoners from casting ballots, it also prohibits roughly 50,000 parolees from voting. This election could change that.
Hi, I'm CalMatters reporter Elizabeth Castillo, and I'm going to explain Prop 17 in under a minute.
Prop 17 would change the state constitution, allowing people on parole to vote. In California, people serving their sentences in county jails can already vote unless they're transferring to a state or federal prison or they're serving time for a parole violation. The proposition would also clear the way for parolees to run for office if they're registered to vote and haven't been convicted of perjury or bribery. Supporters say once people finish their term in prison, they should be encouraged to re-enter society, and granting parolees voting rights is one way to help people have a stake in their community. Opponents say parole is reserved for violent and serious criminals. Those who have been convicted of murder, rape, and other violent crimes should wait until after they finish parole and have proven they're rehabilitated before they get to vote again. So, vote yes if you think people who have served their prison sentence but are still on parole should get to vote. Vote no if you think people should wait until after they've completed their parole to be able to vote. To learn more about this proposition and others, visit calmatters.org. For CalMatters, I'm Elizabeth Castillo.
Kids today, there's TikTok and iPhones, Instagram and virtual graduations. And soon, there may be voting. Voting among young people is pretty abysmal. Proposition 18 aims to change that by giving them buy-in earlier in the process and allowing more of them to vote sooner.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Aguilera, CalMatters Child and Youth Issues reporter, and this is what you need to know about Proposition 18 in under a minute.
Prop 18 would allow eligible 17-year-olds to vote in primary and special elections if they will be 18 by the general election. Democratic lawmakers put Prop 18 on the ballot. It has to go before the voters because it will amend the Constitution. Supporters say many 17-year-olds already work and pay taxes, and this would get them involved in voting at the beginning of an election cycle. They say it could also boost youth voting overall. Opponents say 17-year-olds are not worldly enough to vote and say they are still too influenced by their parents and school teachers to be objective voters. So vote yes if you want eligible 17-year-olds to get a jump start on the voting process. Vote no if you want to keep things as they are. Voting starts at 18, period. For more information on Prop 18 and everything on the November ballot, visit calmatters.org.
What do real estate agents, firefighters, baby boomers, and the Big Lebowski all have in common? Proposition 19.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm the Housing and Data Reporter at CalMatters, and I'm going to explain Prop 19, the Portable Property Tax Break Initiative, in 1 minute.
If you're having voter deja vu, here's why. In 2018, California realtors put a sweet baby boomer tax break on the ballot. Seniors who buy a new house would keep the same lower property tax rate they would have owed on their old house, based on what they originally paid for it way back when. Voters disagreed, worried about billions in lost revenue for schools and cities. Well, the realtors are back again with pretty much the same idea, but they have a new twist on how to pay for it.
This is still our house!
Right now, Californians can inherit homes from their parents, rent them, and still pay their parents low property tax rates. It's why actor Jeff Bridges was probably paying less than you in property taxes on the Malibu estate he inherited. Prop 19 would close the Lebowski loophole, generating hundreds of millions in tax revenue. Firefighters would get a big cut of those dollars. Opponents say it's a special interest giveaway to realtors to boost commissions. So vote yes if you think older Californians should keep their low property taxes when they move. Vote no if you think they shouldn't, and that Californians should not have to pay higher taxes for what they inherit. For more on Prop 19 and everything else on your ballot, go to CalMatters.org.
To make our streets safe again, we must target the most dangerous criminals.
Once upon a time, California was the center of the country's tough-on-crime movement. But over the last decade, California's attitudes have changed. We've reduced sentencing on nonviolent crimes, made it easier for inmates to get out on parole, and knocked some felonies, offenses that can carry serious prison time, down to misdemeanors, which might mean a short stay in jail, probation, or a fine. Some say those changes have gone too far, and they put Prop 20 on your ballot. Hi, I'm Ben Christopher. I'm an election reporter with CalMatters, and this is Prop 20 in a minute. Prop 20 would do four main things. It would reclassify a bunch of property crimes as wobblers, meaning they could be charged as either misdemeanors like they are now, or felonies. It would boost penalties for people who regularly violate the terms of their parole. It would require law enforcement to collect DNA samples from people convicted of some misdemeanor property crimes, and it would double the list of violent felonies that disqualify offenders from being able to apply for early release.
Under California law, domestic violence isn't considered a violent crime.
Wait, what did she just say? Can we stop the clock? Okay, so just to be clear, that doesn't mean domestic violence is legal in California, but if Prop 20 passes, it would be one more offense that excludes an inmate from the possibility of early parole. All right, go ahead. Supporters say Prop 20 closes dangerous loopholes in the law and that early reforms have resulted in an increase in property crime, which seems to be true. Opponents say this isn't the time to go back to the 1990s when tough-on-crime laws failed to reduce crime and triggered mass incarceration that ruined countless lives. Plus, the state crime rate is at a historic low. So vote yes if you want to increase penalties for some property crimes and make it harder for some inmates to qualify for parole. Vote no if you want to keep things the way that they are. To learn more about everything on your 2020 ballot, go to calmatters.org.
This fall, you'll start going through your ballot and see rent control. Sound familiar? There's my colleague, Matt, talking about the same proposal back in 2018. 59% of Californians voted against it. So I'm sure you're wondering, what's new this time? I'll explain.
Hi, I'm Jackie Botts, and I cover economic inequality for CalMatters. I'll explain Prop 21 in under a minute.
California renters typically pay 70% more than renters in other states. It's one of the big reasons nearly 150,000 Californians are unhoused. Last year, California lawmakers passed a state law capping yearly rent increases at around 8% for most housing. Some people think the state law doesn't go far enough, which brings us to Prop 21. Some cities have their own rent control laws, but their power is limited. For example, cities can't enact rent control laws for single-family homes. But Prop 21 would allow cities to enact stricter rent control for almost all rental housing, as long as it's more than 15 years old. Supporters say this will prevent more homelessness and gentrification. Opponents say stricter local rent control will make it unprofitable for landlords to build more housing, which we so desperately need. Plus, California voters already nixed this idea in 2018. On the other hand, the pandemic's financial shock could make people more eager to protect renters. Vote yes on Prop 21 if you want your city to be able to expand rent control. Vote no on Prop 21 if you don't. For more information on Prop 21 and everything on the November ballot, visit calmatters.org.
For California gig workers, the last few years have involved a lot of driving in circles. Uber and Lyft drivers have organized protests and honked their horns over a new state law that was supposed to change how they get paid. Now, they're back in the middle of another big money battle.
I'm CalMatters economy reporter Lauren Hepler, and this is what you need to know about Prop 22 in under a minute.
California's new labor law was supposed to reclassify thousands of contract workers as employees, giving them higher pay, healthcare, and family leave. But companies like Uber and Lyft haven't complied. They've threatened to shut down and say the law would force them to cut jobs and raise prices. Instead, the gig companies want voters' help rewriting the rules with Prop 22. It would offer workers a few new benefits, but not as many as the state law. Gig companies kicked off their campaign with more than $100 million and have kept adding since. Labor groups are fighting back. They say the pandemic is a prime example of why drivers need the stronger protections of current laws, not this milder alternative. Vote yes on Prop 22 to allow gig companies to limit contractors' benefits. Vote no if you think gig companies should treat and pay drivers like employees. Remember, there are already lawsuits flying over gig worker rules, so it could be a bumpy road to Election Day. For more information on Prop 22 and everything on the November ballot, visit CalMatters.org.
They say if at first you don't succeed, try again. And that's what One Health Workers Union is doing. 2 years ago, Californians voted against a ballot measure that would have limited the profits of kidney dialysis companies. Fast forward, Californians are now being asked to vote on yet another dialysis proposition.
Hi, I'm CalMatters health reporter Ana Ibarra, and this is Prop 23 in a minute.
Prop 23 is not so much about capping profits as it is about adding regulations, although these may come at a cost to clinics, which serve about 80,000 Californians with kidney failure. The measure would require clinics to have at least one physician on site during operating hours. It would also mandate that clinics report infection data to the state, get state approval before closing a clinic, and prohibit clinics from discriminating against patients based on their insurance type. Supporters, led by the labor union SEIU United Health Workers, say dialysis companies need to be held accountable and that the proposed requirements would improve patient services. Opponents, led by dialysis companies, argue this is another attempt by the labor group to pressure clinics and unionize dialysis workers. Plus, they say clinics already have the necessary medical staff on site. Hiring additional doctors would raise clinic costs, leading some clinics to cut their hours or shut down, stranding people who need dialysis treatment to survive. So vote yes if you want the state to add more requirements for dialysis clinics. Vote no if you don't.
Most fights over data privacy shape up like this. Big tech on one side, privacy advocates on the other. But the privacy fight on your ballot this year? It's complicated. 2 years ago, California passed the first data privacy law in the nation. Now you can ask businesses for all the information they have about you and tell them not to sell your data. But the man who pushed for that law after a dinner party conversation with a Google engineer says it's not strong enough. So he put Prop 24 on your ballot.
Hi, I'm Laurel Rosenhall, political reporter with CalMatters, and I'm going to explain Prop 24 in less than a minute.
Prop 24 would change California's privacy law in several ways. It would let you tell businesses to limit the use of sensitive data, such as your exact location and health info, stop businesses from holding onto your data for longer than necessary, triple the fine on companies that violate children's privacy rights, and create a new state agency to enforce the privacy law. Privacy advocates who supported the law 2 years ago are split over this measure. On one side, Alistair McTaggart, the Bay Area real estate developer who pushed for the first privacy law, has spent more than $4 million on Prop 24. On the other side, several privacy advocates say Prop 24 would actually hurt consumers by delaying a rule in the existing law and by allowing tech companies to grab your data when you leave the state. The tech industry? It could just sit this one out and let privacy advocates fight among themselves. So, vote yes if you want to change California's privacy law, and vote no if you don't. Learn more about this proposition and others at calmatters.org. For CalMatters, I'm Laurel Rosenhall.
If you're arrested and taken to jail in California, you'll typically have two options: pay your bail or pay someone to bail you out. That means wealthy people get out of jail quicker, plead to fewer crimes, and because they have less incentive to take a deal, even get shorter sentences. Prop 25 would change that. But even opponents of the current system aren't sure Prop 25 is the solution.
I'm CalMatters reporter Nigel Duara, and this is what you need to know about Prop 25 in under a minute.
Prop 25 would make California the first state to replace cash bail with an algorithm that assesses a person's risk of fleeing before trial. Former Governor Jerry Brown signed a law ending cash bail in 2018. Opposition, led by bail bond companies that make money off the current system, challenged the law. Prop 25 is the statewide showdown. Supporters say cash bail is classist, racist, and unfair. While awaiting trial, rich people go free, poor people don't. Opponents come in two flavors. The bail industry says changes will lead to more crime. The other side of the opposition agrees with the measure's supporters. The bail system is racist, classist, and unfair. But they say that while an algorithm can help you pick a song or a toaster, it shouldn't determine whether you get out of jail. So vote yes if you want the state to switch from cash bail to a risk-based algorithm. Vote no if you want the state to keep the system as is, or you're waiting for a better solution. For more information on Prop 25 and everything on the November ballot, visit calmatters.org.